December 14th, 2025, Bondi Beach, Sydney. It's a warm summer evening. At 5:30 p.m., Australia's most famous beach is filled with families, tourists, and local residents. The Hanukkah by the Sea Festival has just begun. Music carries through the crowd. Hundreds have gathered to celebrate the first night of Hanukkah. Just over an hour later, everything changes. At 6:47 p.m., gunfire breaks the calm. From a pedestrian bridge overlooking the beach, two attackers open fire on the crowd below. Panic spreads instantly. People run, others freeze. What happened next would expose critical failures and leave a nation searching for answers. Sunday evening at Bondi Beach began like any other celebration. It was the first night of Hanukkah. More than 1,000 people gathered along the shoreline. Families danced. Drums echoed across the sand. Children ran freely. Some people swam in the ocean as the sun disappeared beyond the water. There was no fear, no warning, no sign that anything was wrong. Within hours, Bondi Beach would become the site of Australia's deadliest mass shooting in almost 30 years. What followed was not just an act of violence, but a chain of moments that exposed how quickly safety can collapse and how fragile public spaces really are. The first signs of danger appeared just before the main attack began. Dashcam footage later showed a man and a woman confronting one of the attackers as he stepped out of his car on Campbell Parade, the road running directly along the beach. The encounter was sudden and chaotic. The two bystanders tried to stop him. Both were shot and killed. Their names were not immediately released, but their actions would later be described as instinctive, an attempt to protect others nearby. At 6:47 p.m. local time, police say two gunmen opened fire on a crowded group of families attending the Hanukkah celebration. Witnesses described confusion, panic, and screaming as gunshots rang out across the beach. People ran in every direction. Some fled toward the water. Others hid behind cars, walls, and nearby structures, unsure where the shots were coming from. Emergency services received their first calls minutes later. At 6:57 p.m., New South Wales police posted publicly that they were responding to a developing incident at Bondi Beach and urged the public to stay away. At that moment, the full scale of the attack was still unclear. Video footage later analyzed and geolocated showed the two attackers standing on a small pedestrian bridge next to Campbell Parade. From there, they fired toward the gathering below. One gunman eventually walked down the steps of the bridge and moved closer to the grassy area where families had been celebrating only minutes earlier. Then came a moment that stunned investigators. A bystander, later identified as 43-year-old Ahmed Al-Ahmed, rushed forward and wrestled the firearm away from the shooter. The struggle was brief and violent. The gunman managed to break free and retreated back toward the bridge as chaos continued around them. For nearly 10 minutes, the situation remained unstable. Gunfire continued. People were injured. Others lay motionless as emergency responders struggled to reach the scene through blocked roads and panicked crowds. Eventually, one of the gunmen was shot by police and collapsed on the bridge. The second shooter continued firing until officers arrived in greater numbers and secured the area. By 7:37 p.m., police announced that two individuals were in custody at the beach. As the night unfolded, the scale of the tragedy became clearer. At 9 p.m., authorities confirmed an initial death toll of 9 people. That number would later rise to at least 15, including one of the alleged attackers. Police also confirmed that the surviving suspect was in critical condition at a hospital. At 9:36 p.m., nearly 3 hours after the first shots were fired, officials formally declared the incident a terrorist attack. The alleged gunmen were identified as 50-year-old Sajid Akram, who was killed during the exchange with police, and his 24-year-old son, Naveed Akram, who remained under guard in hospital. Investigators described the attack as anti-Semitic, targeting Sydney's Jewish community during a religious celebration. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese later addressed the nation, calling the shooting an act of pure evil and condemning the hatred that drove it. But even as officials spoke, difficult questions remained unanswered. How were two armed individuals able to approach a crowded public event without being stopped? Why were there no visible security measures despite the size of the gathering? How long did it take for authorities to fully understand what was unfolding? In the days that followed, investigators reconstructed the timeline minute by minute. Security experts debated response times. Analysts examined whether the attack could have been prevented. Community leaders mourned the victims while demanding accountability. What became increasingly clear was that this was not just a story about the attackers. It was a story about vulnerability, about how open public spaces, designed for connection and celebration, can become targets without warning. The people at Bondi Beach that night did nothing wrong. They came to celebrate a religious holiday in a public place, trusting that they were safe. That trust was shattered in minutes. As Australia continues to grieve, the incident forces a larger question that extends far beyond Bondi Beach. How do modern societies protect open spaces without turning them into fortresses? How do authorities balance freedom, visibility, and security in a world where threats can emerge without warning? For the families who lost loved ones, those questions may never bring comfort. For policymakers and security agencies, they demand urgent answers. And for the rest of the world, the events at Bondi Beach stand as a reminder that even places associated with peace, celebration, and everyday life are not immune to sudden violence. This was not just a night of terror, it was a warning. This video is presented for informational and documentary purposes only. It is based on publicly available reporting and verified sources, and it does not intend to promote, justify, or sensationalize violence, extremism, or illegal activity. If you found this investigation valuable, consider liking the video and subscribing to Oscura Files. New documentaries exploring hidden cyber events, digital threats, and untold stories are released regularly.